Hey, this week we're going to be talking about ornithology, one of my favorite ologies. Ornithology is the study of birds, and this week we're going to talk about all kinds of different things that have to do with birds. Before we get started, though, I want to be sure that we remember about some of the things we've talked about before and how they're going to apply to our study of birds this time. So one of the things that I like to do to make sure that we're all remembering our observation and inquiry skills is a little game that we play when kids come out to Jackson Bottom. So I'm going to play that game with you right now, being super sneaky, right? Nobody saw that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a bird fly by, and your job is going to be to observe. Now remember, observing means just telling us what you're seeing, not making guesses about what it is. So make sure you're using your best observation skills. And you're going to be looking for those things that we're going to be looking for on birds throughout our week of bird programming. And those things include size, pattern, color, and some other things that really aren't going to apply here because we're only talking about a stuffed animal and not an actual bird. I don't have a bird in my hand, although that would be fabulous. So, are you ready? A bird is going to fly by. I want you to notice some of those things we've talked about. What colors do you see? Where do you see them? Do you see any unusual things about the way the bird is shaped? Are you ready? Here it comes. All right, think for a second. What did you see? I'm guessing that many of you will have seen some black and some white. Those things are really important in figuring out what bird you're looking at. In this case, the black and the white are in certain spots. Was the bird that flew by a penguin? We know it wasn't because of three things. So number one, penguins don't live here. Habitat is one of the things you'll be thinking about when you're thinking about what birds you might be seeing. Another thing is, can penguins fly? We know they can't, so that's going to be another issue. It couldn't have flown by. And then number three, were there any other things that you saw with that bird that maybe wouldn't be seen on a penguin? Let him fly by again and see what you think. Did you see some other colors? Maybe red, maybe on his head. Did you see that it was sort of a crest? Those are all things that would help you identify. Now, once you've made those observations, then you can think back about things you know and apply those things to what you've observed, and then you can make your guess. So some of you might have seen a bird like that before. The park that I often go to and the park that I've taken you guys to sometimes is a park where these birds live all the time. So this bird is called a pileated woodpecker. In real life, he's actually much bigger than this, but he does have this red crest. He's black and white. He's got this long bill because he's a woodpecker, and woodpeckers eat very special food. And we'll talk more about the kinds of things that birds eat a little bit later in our series. So once you've done your observation and you've thought about what you know before, you might also have to look into some other resources. You might have to find a field guide. These are two of my favorites. I like this one because it talks about birds that are right here in our area. It's called Birds of the Willamette Valley region. And then this one is called Western Birds. It covers a lot more birds. But this guide has drawings in it, and I personally prefer drawings over photographs. Just like all of us are individuals, birds are individuals too. So if you see a photograph, you might think that all birds should look like that, whereas the people who do the artwork usually make sort of a more generic bird. So if they were making a pileated woodpecker, they might make one that would show the things that you're most likely to see in a pileated woodpecker. So field guides are really important. Now, if you haven't been a bird watcher before, you might not have a field guide in your house. Here's your assignment for this week. I would like you to start creating your own field guide. Now, I know that you are not, at least I would not be able to create pictures that are as detailed as these, but you can create the pictures that will help you to identify a bird later. So all you really need is a circle for a head, a circle for a body, and maybe a triangle for a tail and some sticks for a leg, maybe a triangle for the beak. And the shape and the size and the way those things go together is going to help you to identify a bird. It's also going to be really important where those colors are. So with our pileated woodpecker, if these colors were in different places, it would mean that this wasn't a pileated woodpecker, but something else entirely. So when you start making your field guide, just do that, unless you're a really great bird artist, and some of you probably are. But if you're not, just make a really simple bird outline and show yourself where you see the colors, where you see different patterns, and those things will help you identify. As you'll find out, the size and shape of the beak is really important to how a bird lives. The length of his legs is really important to how a bird lives. All those things matter. So when you make your field guide, you might not know which bird it is right away, but maybe you could look at them on the internet if you really wanted to know its name. But you might just put down those field marks that help you remember what birds you saw, and maybe you might even name your bird its own name. So I might name this bird red-top mask bird, because that's what it looks like to me. But you could name it something else. So start your own field guide, and we'll see what you find. You're going to learn a lot more about birds over the next week. But as you know, I like to end each time with a mystery when I have one. And this week, when I was out walking, I saw a very curious thing. Now, you might know something about this, and if you think back, maybe you've seen some things like it. But there is some very strange action going on in something hanging from a tree. See if you can make a guess about what's going on.